Create a full cinematic car rendering scene from scratch in Unreal Engine 5.7 using PCG, dynamic environments, and real-time workflow. First, I create a third-person project. After that, I create a basic level. Now go to Landscape menu and create a simple landscape without changing any setting. Now I want to use the ramp tool to create a slope on the ground. We can increase its width using the ramp width value to get a wider slope. For this tutorial, I take some inspiration from this reference, but not follow it completely. The first method is to create the landscape patch. In Gaia, I add simple mountain node and increase its strength a bit with add adjust. Then we can export its height output and use in Unreal Engine. As you can see, we have this height map and we can import it into Unreal. But before that, let's add the required project plugins. The first plugin we enable is Landscape Patch. Next, we active the plugins related to PCG. We also need Procedural Vegetation, which is available in the newer version of Unreal. So we need that as well in order to create trees. We also need HDRI backdrop. Alright, now we want to use our height map. For this, I create a folder for our blueprints and then create a blueprint actor inside it. Now inside the blueprint, we add a landscape texture patch and set the source mode to texture asset so we can assign our height map texture to it. Open your texture and set its conversion setting to grayscale. In the height encoding setting, you can control the intensity and height or depth of your map in the scene. However, I prefer to fine-tune it manually after importing the height map to the scene. As you can see, I entered the value incorrectly. We must set the zero in encoding setting to example 0.2 and word space encoding scale to 1000 or 2000. You can also adjust the alpha blend so it integrates better with the ground. The second method is to use static meshes and add them to our scene to fill the background. As you can see, I'm trying to arrange them similar to our reference scene. But it's not very important. Science, we don't want to recreate it exactly. Also, at the bottom of this mountain slope, we'll have water. After placing the static meshes, we bring our blueprint back to the scene and slightly reduce its height to create a suitable area for building the road. For the landscape material, this time I wanted to use the auto material to save time. Size creating one from scratch is very lengthy process. So I use a free Unreal asset, and by entering my email, we can get the related file and import it into Unreal. From the example folder, we select the landscape material and assign it to our landscape. Now go to landscape mode and click create layers from assigned material. Then click the plus icon for all the materials so they get added to the scene. Now we can select any materials we want, click on it and paint it onto our scene. To create the road, go to landscape mode, then in the spline section, add a new layer as an edit layer spline, so we can build our road on it. Just make sure to place it on the top layer. One of the most important advantage of using landscape texture patch is that we can draw spline on it and have it automatically sculpt and deform the terrain. With the static mesh, we can't modify the surface using spline like this. To create the road, just hold Ctrl and click to place points. You can also move, rotate and adjust the height of these points. In this way, we extend the road, and if there are any extra points, we can simply delete them. Now to create the road, we need a mesh. From the modeling section, we create a box and set its size, for example, 500 to 500. Now we select all the points of spline and assign mesh to them. As you can see, because our mesh doesn't have enough segments, the road gets broken and destroyed on curves. So now we create a new mesh and increase its segments. Then we download a material from FabMarket and assign it to our mesh. The next issue is that the size is a bit too large, and in some areas the road is sinking into the ground. So we select all the points, slightly reduce the half weight, and then select the road segments and increase the center adjust value a bit upward. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we don't want to recreate the environment exactly like the reference. And I want to add trees to our scene as well. So we use FabMarket and import some mega plants into our project. As soon as we import one of the trees, we get an error saying the nanite foliage is not enabled. So we need to enable in the project setting and restart the engine. Now we move into the PCG section. One of the features that can greatly speed up our workflow. The first node is get spline data, which create and retrieve the data from our spline. Then we need to create a new blueprint and add a spline inside it. we need to create a closed loop spline. After that, in the class default, we assign a tag for it. Now set getSpline data to all word actors and paste the tag you assigned it to spline here. To generate points from the spline data and place them interior of the line, we need to use a spline sampler and set it in the interior, so the points are created inside the spline. To make sure the points do not sink into the ground, we use projection and get landscape data into it. Now we want to assign meshes to our points, but the tree types we have is skeletal, and if we use it directly on the points, it will become too heavy. Later on, we will also use animated trees. So as usual, we open procedural vegetation and try to reduce their complexity a bit. Since we're going to use a large number of them and they might make our scene heavy. Also for exporting, set the mode to a static mesh, choose the output location, give it a name, and then export it. Finally, we assign our tree to PCG and our forest is generated. As you can see, in some cases, the trees are not properly aligned to the terrain and don't stand straight. So we add transform points node and enable absolute rotation to make them aligned properly with the ground. We can also create variation in offset rotation and scale to achieve a more natural looking forest. If you ever want to create another line like this, you need to enable the multiple option in the Get Spline Data setting. To generate trees on our static mesh, we first add a mesh sampler and assign our mesh, for example the mountain, to it. Then we change the sample method to Poisson sampling. In the Poisson sampling setting, we can control the density. The lower the value, the more points are generated. And if we increase the sampling radius, we'll get fewer points on the mesh. Also, to get data from actors in the scene, we use get actor data, set it to all world actors, and assign a tag to it. This same tag must also be entered in the settings of the target static mesh. Next, we add copy points and connect our nodes to it. Also, to make the points larger and more visible, we use a bond modifier. Now we can add our trees to static meshes. So we use the same transform points and static mesh, apply them here as well, and by adjusting the scale and values, we can achieve the desired result. Next, I add a plane to scene and I wanna Unreal Engine water material to it. You just need to search water in the content and find it. Now I wanted to refine our scene a bit to make it look better. You'll see this part in fast forward. Now I add my first cine camera to the scene and choose a suitable view for it. I changed the film back to DSLR, which gives us a better view. To get better reflections in the water, I add a post-process volume and set it to infinite extent, so it affects everything in the scene. Then I search for reflection and enable high quality translucency reflections. Now it's time to create another spline blueprint for our road. And in PCG, add whatever details we want to make the road look more realistic and feel more better. Pay close attention to this part. It will have a very positive impact. This time, after creating the blueprint and the spline, we set get spline data to the on spline and set the mode to distance so it controls the spacing for us. The first simple thing we can add to this spline is static mesh, such as road signs. Now we just need to add a transform points node, and by changing the offset we can move the signs to the side of the road and also rotate them. You can control the spacing between them by adjusting the distance value. Also, don't forget to use projection so the signs don't sink into the ground. The second feature we can add this spline is spawn spline mesh, which can generate continuous lines of mesh for us. For example, we can use it to place roadside guard along the road. After importing the guardrail mesh, we need to add a spawn spline mesh node. The only input this node takes is create spline, so we add create spline as well. Now we can assign our guardrail mesh to it. For better result, we duplicate everything from the spline sampler and reduce the spacing between the points to get a higher quality guardrail. Now I wanted to place some animated trees along the road where they are visible. I did this intentionally because I didn't want to make the scene heavier by using too many animated skeletal trees. For this we use a spawn actor. The input we need is a blueprint. So we create a blueprint and assign one of the other animated skeletal mesh to it. For our blueprint, we need instanced skeletal mesh. In its skeletal mesh setting, we assign our tree. Also, for the wind animation, we need to select wind in the transform provider section. Then we create as instance so that our tree is spawned together with animation. Now we can assign our blueprint to the spine actor node. The rest of the settings are repetitive, so I show this part of the video in the fast forward as well. To achieve better lighting, we can adjust the directional light settings. For example, I set the intensity to 2 number. Our scene is almost complete. But the most important part of this tutorial starts here. We are going to bring a car into our environment and take a render from it. I choose the BMW for our scene. It's really high quality model and with full details. I prepare it in Blender and share it with you as well. You can also download it from Sketchpad. As you can see, after importing the car into the scene, it doesn't have the same high quality materials in Unreal, so we need to fix it. First, I place all parts into a folder, so we can easily select and manage them. Then we adjust its scale according to our player and position it in the middle of the road. For the fab market, I download the automotive materials pack for our project. Alright, the first thing we need to make sure our camera is focused exactly on the car. For this, we add an empty actor into the scene. Next, in the camera setting, we set the focus method to the tracking. And in the tracking setting, we select our actor. Now we want to use our material asset and assign the existing materials to it part by part, making adjusting in their setting whenever necessary. This makes the process much easier. For example, we have glass materials or body materials, and also we have metal materials, and we can use them easily. I'll show this part of assigning the materials in fast forward to avoid making the video too long, and I'll continue the explanation in the lighting section. When choosing materials, I may test several options, and whichever one works best, I keep that as the final result. Now I want to use HDRI backdrop. So I download an HDRI from Polyhaven and assign it to it. After adding the HDRI backdrop, a default HDRI is applied. Now it's time to use its size is small. After creating up our lights, and add our behind it. So we need to increase this size and add different frames. We also need to move it downwards so it sits below our ground level. We also need to go into the new texture setting and reduce the brights. Now we can adjust the intensity and rotate the directional light to achieve the proper lighting for the scene. We can also control the thickness of the background atmosphere by adjusting the Mi scattering scale option. Next, in the post-process volume setting, we set the exposure to manual and adjust its value manually. Now it's time to add some decals to our scene. I download the decals from Web Market and import it in our scene. If their color doesn't match well, we can adjust the tint in the material setting to better blend them with the broad or wherever we use them. If the video has been helpful so far, please support us by liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel. Next, I import another decals, and I also add some grass sets to my scene using the foliage. You might be wondering if we built this large environment just to capture a single shot or scene, but we can easily move the car around and create multiple shots and different angles within the same environment. As you see, I extended the road, and at the bottom of it, I want to create another scene. How many assets you add to your scene and place them properly, the more natural and realistic your scene will look. For example, I can download assets from Fab Marketplace or Quicksell, bring them into the my scene and create new variation and scenarios. By placing these meshes between the dry land and the water, I try to make this part of scene feel more natural. Then using the landscape material, I also adjust the material in this area. Now we can bring our car into the scene and set up the camera. Next, using foliage, meshes and the lighting we have, we can further improve the scene. Alright guys, the tutorial is complete. And now we can capture any shots we want in the scene. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please support the channel by liking, subscribing and sharing.